The Wife is First. Volume 3, Gathering Storm. Chapter 94. Mu Hanzhong was so angry that he couldn't speak. Even if they were husband and wife, it was still too much, especially since it's broad daylight. Jing Xiao had always been fond of this bashful and annoyed expression of his wife. So much so that he couldn't help but leaned in and kissed those tightly pressed lips as he coaxed in a hoarse voice, "Jun Qing, don't go to court today." "How can I do that? Today's court session is quite crucial." Mu Hanzhong pushed him away and tied the jade belt of his court robes carefully. Jing Xiao folded his arms and waited leisurely for his wife to fasten his belt. When Mu Hanzhong lifted his gaze to give his husband a puzzled look, Jing Xiao picked him up and threw him on the bed. What are you doing?" Mu Hanzhong was startled and struggled to get up. "Jun Qing, I think you have gradually forgotten your duties since you've become a marquis." Jing Xiao straddled his narrow waist, which made the jade belt of his court robes to be pressed against his thighs, giving off a refreshing coolness. "Don't make trouble, otherwise I will be late." Mu Hanzhong was a bit hurried today. In today's court session, it would be decided who would be sent in the campaign to Huainan. He had to go attend the court session. "See, you really forgot," Jing Xiao said angrily and began to undo the layers of his wife's gorgeous court clothes one after another. The exquisite clothes were layered on top of each other and Jing Xiao dismantled it just like a child taking a toy apart. The more pieces he took off, the more excited he got. We can't, no, Mu Hanzhong struggled to get up, but his strength was quite inferior to that of Jing Xiao, so he was quickly suppressed by the mighty His Highness Prince Cheng. When Jing Xiao entered into him, he said solemnly, "Remember, you are first and foremost Prince Consort Cheng, with being the Marquis of Wen Yuan comes second. Satisfying your husband's needs comes first before going to court." Mu Hanzhong tightened his grip on the sheets beneath him. *******. The fourth prince waited outside Fenji Palace for a long time. The eunuch in charge advised him to go to the side hall to rest, but he insisted on waiting outside the door, until his body became covered with a lot of dew. He heard that Jing Xiao knelt on the jade steps for an entire day and night when he asked to be allowed to join the military. So now that he wanted to lead the expedition, he naturally had to show his sincerity. Once Emperor Hongzheng was fully dressed neatly, the Empress then tactfully expressed that Jing Yu had been waiting outside for a long time. "In what way do you think you are better than Jing Xiao?" Emperor Hongzheng glanced at the fourth prince's dew-stained clothes. There was a trace of undetectable coldness in his eyes. "Third imperial brother leads the military with extraordinary skills. This son is ashamed that he was inferior and couldn't match up." Jing Yu knelt on the ground and said humbly, "At least you have some self-awareness." Emperor Hongzheng snorted. The fourth prince choked. He was just pretending to be humble when he said that statement, but who would have thought that his imperial father would affirm his words? Although he felt some dissatisfaction, he did not dare to show it. This moment was the opportunity that his mother had fought for him. He had to come up with convincing reason why he should be chosen. Jing Yu took a deep breath to calm himself down before he said, "Although this son is not as skilled as third imperial brother, this son will be an adult soon and want to make meritorious contributions like my brothers did." "That's right, Your Majesty. Battle experience naturally can only be earned in the battlefield," the Empress supported her son's words. "Experience?" Emperor Hongzheng banged the cup he was holding on the table. "What kind of place is Jiangnan? Do you think it's just a practice ground for Jing Yu?" "Imperial father, please quell your anger." The fourth prince hurriedly kowtowed. Knowing that this reason would not convince Emperor Hongzheng, he gritted his teeth and had no choice but to throw caution to the wind to say, "This son has something to report." Emperor Hongzheng motioned for him to continue, and the fourth prince told half-truths and half-falsehoods about what he knew about Jing Xiao's meeting with the king of Huainan. If third imperial brother really has something going on with the king of Huainan, and if he is sent to command this campaign, then Emperor Hongzheng looked at him quietly for a while and said, "You claimed that the two of them have met, but did you see it with your own eyes?" The room was already empty when the son brought the people there. The fourth prince did not have enough evidence. Everything had only been told to him by Zhao Julan and he did not dare to say too much. This son only received this information. Who gave you this information? Emperor Hongzheng stared at the fourth prince closely, his gaze sharp. Zhen didn't realize that there are people in court who will give information to you and yet didn't report it to us. The fourth prince suddenly broke out in a cold sweat. He only focused on smearing Jing Shao, but he forgot that his father hated it when the princes were colluding with the courtiers. He gritted his teeth and said bravely, "It was Zhao Julan, the assistant minister of the Ministry of Rights. He was born in the south of the Yangtze River. When he came to the capital to take the imperial civil examinations, the king of Huainan gave him the money for travel expenses, so in the surface, he's ostensibly loyal to the king of Huainan. This son happened to meet Zhao Julan by chance on the street, and he said that he seemed to have seen the king of Huainan going to the peach garden in the south of the city, and the carriage of Prince Cheng's estate was also there." After saying that, he didn't dare to look up and just stared at the intricately patterned carpet under his knees. Emperor Hongzheng remained silent, tapping the table with 2 fingers loudly. All of a sudden, he swept the cups on the table to fall on the ground. What's the use of keeping those who betray their own patron? Not only the fourth prince, but the empress was also so scared that she dropped to a half crouch, not daring to make any sound. Jing Shao slowed down his movements and said to the miserable Dofu who was standing outside the door, "Go to the palace and report that the Marquis of Wenyuan is not feeling well and won't be able to attend the court session today." No. Before Mu Hanzhong could finish speaking, the person on top of him glanced down and rubbed against his most sensitive place viciously and deliberately, making him unable to even complete a thought, least of all speak them. He was afraid that those outside of the doors would hear the ambiguous noises he was making, so he could only bite his lower lip to prevent any noise from coming out of his mouth. Duo Fu hurriedly acknowledged the order and quickly drove away the maidservants who were waiting to serve the couple with washing up and breakfast. Afterwards he hurriedly carried out the order. The focus of today's morning court session was still on the matter of Huainan fiefdom. A lot of arguments have already broken out over who should be sent there. Jing Chen had been silent, not saying a word from the beginning. The eldest prince had just recovered and still looked a little sick standing there. Emperor Hongzheng didn't seem to have any intention of asking the opinions of his 2 other sons. This went on until the courtiers who were strongly recommending the fourth prince, were giving all kinds of reasons why the fourth should be allowed to go, that the emperor finally said slowly, "Permission granted." There was silence in the court for a moment before everyone came to their senses. The fourth prince, Jing Yu, suppressed his joy and bowed respectfully, "This son will do my best to conquer Huainan for your majesty." Anyone with a discerning eye could see that the fourth prince was interested in the flat terrain in the south of the Yangtze River, which was easy to attack and difficult to defend. It was obvious that he wanted to take this opportunity to easily earn himself an imperial title. However, Prince Cheng, who have worked hard and achieved great results, was still confined to his residence, which the fourth prince took advantage of. They couldn't help but sympathize with him. Several courtiers who were familiar with Mu Hanzhong wanted to give him a few words of comfort, but found that the Marquis of Wenyuan was actually not there on such an important occasion. The Marquis of Wenyuan, who was forcibly stripped of his court robes by his very own imperial prince and thus, unable to go to the court session, unexpectedly escaped the sympathetic and mocking gestures of everyone. The fourth prince was to set off on a campaign to the south of the Yangtze River, and the overall situation was also decided. The empress could finally breathe a sigh of relief and became much friendlier towards the concubines whom she usually found unpleasant to look at. The fourth prince was even more high-spirited and actively preparing for the expedition every day, with his residence bustling with noise and excitement. In contrast, the Prince Cheng/Marquis of Wenyuan estate appeared to be cold and cheerless. End chapter. The Wife is First. Volume 3, Gathering Storm. Chapter 95, Conspiracy. Xiao Si died prematurely. Jing Shao stood up in shock when he heard this. Duo Fu wrinkled his face and said, "It has already been reported to the Imperial Palace. I have to go to Prince Rui's estate." Jing Shao said and was about to change clothes. "You're still under confinement, how can you go there?" "I'll just go on my own." Mu Hanzhong held him back. The fourth prince was about to go on an expedition tomorrow. At this time, if Jing Shao ran out of the house in defiance of the emperor's orders, who knew what sort of ugly rumors might spread around? Jing Shao fell silent for a moment and slowly clenched his fists. How could he forget this? In his previous life, he was still fighting in a campaign at this time and didn't even heard about his brother having a fourth son in the 14th year of Hongzheng. He thought that his return to the past might have caused some changes, but now that he thought more about it, maybe it was the second son of his brother's official wife who had been born on the 16th year of Hongzheng, only he had been born earlier. Back then, that son didn't even live up to his first birthday. By that time, he had already returned to the capital to recuperate. He heard the news of his passing, but he didn't go to his brother's residence. From that time on, his relationship with his brother began to worsen even further. "No, I have to go." Jing Shao ignored everyone's dissuasion. He stood up and went to the inner room. Mu Hanzhong pursed his lips together. He turned around and quickly wrote a note which he handed to Duo Fu, "Send it to the Imperial Palace immediately." Duo Fu agreed, took the note and walked out, his usually clumsy short legs now flying very fast. He was a eunuch who originally came from the Imperial Palace. Now, apart from the two masters of the Prince Cheng's estate, he was the only one who can enter the palace directly. If this note needed to be handed over to His Majesty immediately, he could only go there himself. Mu Hanzhong looked at Duo Fu's back and shook his head. It seemed that it wasn't that this man couldn't walk fast, he was just normally too lazy to walk fast. After the two of them changed their clothes, Jing Shao rode onto Xiao He while holding his prince consort and galloped away hurriedly. The Prince Rui's estate was not far from Prince Cheng's estate, and so, they arrived at the residence's door not long after. The guards in front of the door hurriedly came forward to salute to them while the housekeeper hurriedly welcomed them. "Where's my brother?" Jing Shao threw the reins to a servant and immediately walked inside. "His Highness is in the Princess Consort Rui's courtyard." The steward looked sad. When he saw Jing Shao walking straight to the inner courtyard, he stopped him and asked him to rest in the main courtyard, saying that Jing Chen would be out soon. "No, I have to go in and take a look," Jing Shao said as he was about to go in, but he was pulled back by Mu Hanzhong. "How could you enter someone else's inner courtyard just like that?" Mu Hanzhong glared at him and pulled him to the main courtyard where Jing Chen was staying. The principal wife of Prince Rui was a woman, so Jing Chen had his own courtyard. The two of them sat in the main hall. The maidservant poured them tea and then left politely. Not long after, Jing Chen walked in. When he saw Jing Shao in the room, he was stunned for a moment and then the coldness on his face immediately faded a lot. "Why are you here?" When he heard that something happened in elder brother-in-law's residence, His Highness insisted on coming regardless of everything else, Mu Hanzhong said helplessly. "Making trouble again?" Jing Chen glared at Jing Shao, then he flicked his sleeves and sat down. Jing Shao glanced at his young wife who had complained about him to his elder brother, but he did not dare to get angry or say anything contrarily. "Brother, what happened to Xiao Si? This is so sudden." Jing Chen sighed and rubbed his brows. The imperial physician said that he was born with a congenital deficiency. He had been burning up with fever these last few days and cannot be cured. He passed early this morning. Mu Hanzhong remembered what his mother had said. Princess Consort Rui seemed to have placed her trust on an old nun. He glanced at Jing Shao and was about to say something when suddenly, a loud noise was heard. Princess Consort Rui hurriedly rushed in with her hair in disarray, followed by a group of flustered servants. When Consort Xiao walked in and saw Jing Shao, she immediately stopped and stared at Jing Shao intently for a long time. "What else do you have to say?" Jing Chen looked at Consort Xiao coldly. Then he turned to the servants behind her and said, "What are you all doing standing there in a daze? Send the princess consort back quickly. She is not allowed to step out of the courtyard without my order." "Your Highness." Consort Xiao looked at Jing Chen in shock, but her good upbringing prevented from screaming out loud. She just trembled with anger and turned around stiffly to leave. Jing Shao was stared at for no reason. He didn't understand what had just happened. Jing Chen seemed to had no intention of explaining, and said to the two of them, "Even if there is a reason for the incident, you should go back quickly. I'll send Imperial Father a letter as well." On the way back, Jing Shao's knitted brows never relaxed. What happened in Prince Rui's estate was very strange. Why did Consort Xiao stared at him like that? What was the meaning behind his brother's words? If I've guessed correctly, Princess Consort Rui must have told brother-in-law something that involved you. Mu Hanzhong saw that Jing Shao was absent-minded as Xiao He had almost walked to a vegetable stall to chew on cabbages, so he hurriedly took the reins from his hand and spoke slowly. "Something that involved me? If I didn't go, would she claim that I caused Xiao Xi's death?" Hearing this, Jing Shao frowned even more deeply. Remembering how his brother was, he didn't seem to be doubting him. However, that behavior of his sister-in-law was really confusing. "It's unlikely that she would go that far." Mu Hanzhong lightly kicked the horse's belly to make Xiao He walk faster. "Maybe it was something like how brother-in-law's legitimate son had died and yet you didn't even bother to show your face or something like that." How could she say that? Jing Shao was a little surprised. Her son had just died prematurely. Consort Xiao looked heartbroken about this. How could she still pay attention to other people at this time? A sneer curled up at the corner of Mu Hanzhang's lips. That definitely was not what Consort Xiao really thought about. However, with Jing Chen's temper, she wouldn't dare say what she truly thought and could only try to pick any reason she could use as an excuse to criticize Jing Shao. "There's something suspicious about this matter, we'll have to investigate this." Jing Shao nodded. He also wanted to know why Consort Xiao would target him like this. It was like this in his previous life, and it turned out to be like this in this life as well. In the past life, however, he blamed everything on his brother. He thought that the attitude of his brother's princess consort toward himself was a reflection of his brother's intentions. Now that he was seeing things clearly for himself, he had to get to the bottom of it. The next day, the fourth prince left on an expedition and Emperor Hongzheng went to the city gate to see him off. The fourth prince wore an armor and led his troops away in high spirits, as if victory was already in his sight. Emperor Hongzheng stood on the high city gate, looking profoundly at the army that was getting further and further away. "Your Majesty, evidence of corruption and bribery by the assistant minister of the Ministry of Rights had been found." An official behind him whispered. "Keep him locked up for now." Emperor Hongzheng's expression remained unchanged, but a severe look flashed through his eyes. "Do whatever you must to get to the bottom of this for Zhen." "Yes, Your Majesty." The man responded and slowly backed away. Emperor Hongzheng did not pursue the matter of Prince Cheng disobeying the emperor's orders and went out to go to Prince Cheng's estate. In view of the fact that the imperial family had just lost a grandson, the courtiers did not dare to make a fuss about the matter. After trying to make a scheme about it, they just put it aside. Without the fourth prince, the court seemed to be much calmer than before. Emperor Hongzheng took out the overseas trade regulations drafted by Mu Hanzhong and gave it to everyone to study. For a period of time, the court became full of discussions about it and seemed to be lively again. The court officials with conservative values were naturally opposed to this. They thought it was meaningless to put focus on foreign trade instead of the trading within the empire. Some officials who were born in the south and near the sea knew better, and so a number of people thought it would be a good thing. None of the high-ranking officials said anything but took the regulations back with them to study it further. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Dead. Mu Hanzhang's eyes widened in surprise. Jing Shao nodded. He listened to his prince consort plan and went to check on the old nun Mo Bei from Biyun Temple. Unexpectedly, just as the people he sent arrived, the old nun had already hanged herself in the room. This only showed that there was a truth that they were intending to hide. Mu Hanzhang pursed his lips. This proved that the situation in Prince Rui's estate really have a lot to do with this nun, but now that the person was dead, they wouldn't be able to interrogate her anymore. This is what we got when we interrogated the young nun with her. Jing Shao put several confessions and something wrapped in yellow paper on the table. Confession. Mu Hanzhang took the pieces of paper and looked at them. They explained the number of times Mo Bei had been in and out of Prince Rui's estate and what she had done. The young nun didn't know much, except that Mo Bei basically advised Princess Consort Rui to buy those wicks for altar lamps and offer this and that incense. It can be seen that the young nun captured by Jing Shao had probably served by Mo Bei's side closely. However, Mo Bei would always push the younger nun out of the door whenever she spoke with Consort Xiao, so she didn't know exactly what words had been exchanged between them. What is this? Mu Hanzhang took the yellow paper package and opened it. There was some powder inside which looked like incense ash. This is the elixir that Mo Bei gave for Xiao Si. Jing Shao curled his lips and said. The young nun felt that the medicine that the great sage gave to the imperial grandson must be extraordinary, so she secretly hid a packet of it while Mo Bei was not paying attention, which Jing Shao had now confiscated. Mu Hanzhang poured half of the powder into a small porcelain bottle and wrapped the other half in the yellow paper. Xiao Shao, I don't think we should keep this hidden from brother-in-law. Jing Shao frowned. He wanted to get to the bottom of it himself before talking about it with his brother. After all, these were all just their speculations. His brother must be heartbroken after losing his youngest son. Wouldn't talking about it before they made everything clear be just like stabbing a knife at his brother's heart? Mu Hanzhang put the small porcelain bottle away. Then he stood up, took Jing Shao's hand, and stuffed the yellow paper packet into his palm. This matter is definitely not that simple. No matter what was the purpose of the person behind all of these, I dare say that inciting disharmony between you brotherly relationship is certainly half of it. Jing Shao suddenly raised his head and asked, what do you mean? Whether this medicine is what killed Xiao Si or not, we can't find anyone we could test it with. Mu Hanzhang said as he held Jing Shao's hand. If other people learned of this, they wouldn't be able to explain things properly. Listen to me, hand over this medicine and that young nun to brother-in-law. They were now at the middle of the struggle. If they didn't cherish their brotherly relationship, who would be willing to wade into this muddy water? With Jing Chen's wisdom, he would definitely understand his brother's sincerity. As long as him and his brother was united, nothing else matters. After Jing Shao listened, he got distracted for a moment, but gradually, he tightened his grip on the yellow paper in his hand. If he let others ruin his relationship with his brother again, then coming back from the past would have been all for nothing. When Jing Chen received the medicine powder and the confessions, he didn't say anything for a long time and only looked at Jing Shao deeply. The imperial physician had already tested this medicine when it was given to Xiao Si. Jing Shao was stunned for a moment and then he scratched his head as he said, I just think it's very suspicious that Mo Bei was now dead. I haven't been able to investigate this fully yet. Jing Chen looked at him for a long time, then slowly reached out a hand to rub Jing Shao's head. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Half a month later, the fourth prince arrived in Jiangnan. The terrain of Jiangnan was flat and had few natural defenses, making it easy to attack but difficult to defend. However, what Jing Yu forgot was that if he knew this fact, so did the king of Weinan. Therefore, before the fourth prince's army could set up camp, the Weinan army took the initiative to attack. End chapter. The Wife is First. Volume 3, Gathering Storm. Chapter 96, Maritime Trade. Ye Qian He stood on the gate tower and looked at the fourth prince, who was acting arrogantly, and slowly curved his lips. Your Highness, if you let this general go, I will definitely beat the shit out of that arrogant prick. The generals around him were gearing up one by one, ready to charge into the battle as they watched the fourth prince as if they were a pack of wolves who was seeing a fat piece of meat. SHH, Ye Qian He stretched out a slender index finger and put it on his pale lips. This is a prince, you can't say such vulgar words. Then your majesty, what should we say? The general blinked. Ye Qian He glanced at him and slapped him on the head as he spoke. You don't have to say anything. If you don't win, you won't get any dinner tonight. Yes, your highness. The general received the slap happily and ran away quickly. The battle report from Jiangnan have yet to be sent to the imperial court in the capital, which was busy discussing maritime commerce these days. We have a long history of being involved in overseas trade. The previous dynasty placed ban on overseas trade, but due to the massive profits that maritime trade entails, those merchants are even willing to risk their lives for it. Mu Hanzhong stood in the center of the hall as he spoke. His voice was not loud, but every word were spoken clearly, neither too fast nor too slow. In the quiet imperial court, where even a pin dropping could be heard, each word was clearly transmitted to everyone's ears. This subject believed that rather than continuing the ban, it is better to lift it and allow the trade to proceed with a cut of the benefits. The charter of regulations that the Marquis of Wen Yuan had drafted had been copied several times, and all the important ministers in the court have also read them. It listed in detail the price exchange amount of foreign gold coins for exported product from the empire. The most important thing in it was the establishment of maritime tax. With such huge profits, the court only needed to set up ports and maintain order to collect generous taxes. In this way, the tax revenue of the national treasury could be increased by at least 10% every year. This official think that this method is feasible. The minister of the Ministry of Revenue was the first major official to come forward and gave his approval. As the person who managed the national treasury, he naturally knew how much benefit this could bring to the current dynasty. With the continuous wars in the past 10 years, the treasury is in urgent need of replenishment, and the maritime tax would perfectly solve this immediate requirement. The Minister of War disagreed, though. The establishment of a port will inevitably attract the prying eyes of hostile nations. It will be necessary to increase the number of troops to protect maritime merchants along the coast. This is very time-consuming and labor-intensive. This official thinks that this matter needs to be further discussed. If we want to allow maritime trade, corresponding laws must be established. These are also mentioned in charter that the Marquis of Wen Yuan drafted, but this official thinks it is not detailed enough. The minister from the Ministry of Justice commented, "If we want to open ports, we need to set up corresponding government offices, and official ranks with corresponding salaries needs to be set." The minister from the Ministry of Appointments didn't mention whether he was for or against the issue, and only raised matters that had connection to what they would be responsible for. Only the most irrelevant minister from the Ministry of Rights did not interrupt and stood silently. Mu Hanzhong listened to everyone's comments. His expression remained calm. None of the numerous obstacles presented seemed to deter him, nor made him feel any intent to retreat. Emperor Hongzheng listened quietly, then turned to look at the two remaining princes in the court. "Jingrong, what do you think?" The eldest prince's health has recovered as before. At this time, his eyes were burning as he was waiting for the opportunity to speak. Hearing his name being called, he immediately stepped forward and said, "This prince has also carefully studied the regulations drafted by the Marquis of Wen Yuan and feels that the Marquis of Wen Yuan is a scholar and therefore can only talk about trading business in theoretical terms which might not work in actual practice. There must be a reason why the previous dynasty put a ban on overseas trade. Opening a port rashly may cause disaster." When Mu Hanzhong heard this, he frowned. By saying this, The eldest prince was clearly opposed to this, and many veterans in the court with conservative views must also have this kind of mentality. It could be said that he won the support of those veterans by saying this. As expected, after the eldest prince finished speaking, many conservative veterans came out to speak. Emperor Hongzheng still didn't say a word and only asked Prince Rui for his opinion as well. Jing Qian stepped out, paused for a moment and spoke. This prince think that this proposal is feasible and will be a good thing for the empire. However, the regulations are not detailed enough. It's better if a provisional statute can be drafted addressing the concerns that everyone mentioned and try to open one port first. If this didn't go well with that one port, maritime trade can be banned again. This matter had been debated in the court for several days. Jing Qian's words appealed to both sides of the argument. Those who believe it could work would naturally wait and see, while those who think it would not work, would just have to wait to laugh and joke about it. What the second imperial brother said is absolutely true. It's just that the person in charge of the port must record everything in detail. This prince thinks that someone who knows most about this should be appointed. The eldest prince lowered his head but glanced out of the corner of his eye towards Mu Hanzhang. Mu Hanzhang did not speak and only stood quietly. He naturally understood what the eldest prince meant, and this matter was exactly what he wanted, but it was not the right time yet. As expected, Emperor Hongzheng ignored the eldest prince's words and said, what Jing Qian said makes sense. Each ministry will draft a charter based on what they believe is necessary to be considered within 7 days and submit it to Zhen for review. After the court was dismissed, Mu Hanzhang didn't say much to anyone, and directly got into the carriage of Prince Cheng's residence and went home. Your Highness. The Marquis of Dingnan walked a few steps quickly to catch up with Jing Qian, who was dressed in the moon-white court robes for imperial princes. Lord Marquis. Jing Qian responded politely. The Marquis of Dingnan saw that Jing Qian still looked reserved and steady as ever. The expression on his face was also light but without any warmth, so the Marquis could only attempt to be more cordial. This official heard that the princess consort has been feeling unwell recently. Her mother is very worried and wants to go and visit her. She urged me to ask His Highness when it would be convenient for her to go. Normally, there was no need to report such visits between female family members. However, the Marquis of Dingnan knew that his daughter had been forbidden by Prince Rui to go out of her courtyard, so naturally, this statement was just a tactful and polite pretext. Thinking of consort Xiao, Jing Qian resisted the urge to frown and said calmly, today should be fine. The princess consort had been overthinking things recently. It would be good if Madame can give her a few words of comfort. When the Marquis of Dingnan heard this, he immediately smiled and said, but of course. Mu Hanzhang's complexion looked a little bad. Jing Xiao had tossed him about in bed last night for a little too long. Today's morning court session also dragged on for a long time. After standing for nearly 2 hours, he felt sore all over his body. As soon as he got into the carriage, he was held tightly by a pair of strong arms. Mu Hanzhang was startled, but when he realized that he was being hugged into a familiar warm embrace, he slowly relaxed. He closed the carriage curtain tightly and asked, "Why are you here?" Jing Xiao hugged his wife tightly and told the coachman to set off. Then he gave Mu Hanzhang a kiss on his exhausted face. "I noticed that you didn't come back for a long time, so I assumed that the court session has dragged on this morning. I was afraid that you'd be tired, so I came to pick you up." Mu Hanzhang moved about until he found a comfortable position in his husband's arms. Then he yawned and said, "If you're afraid that I'd get tired, then you should have exercised more restraint last night." Jing Xiao stretched out his hand to rub his wife's sore waist and hummed, "It's not my fault. Who asked you to look at me like that?" Those eyes were obviously asking for this husband to do it again. Thinking of how much he had bullied Jun Qing until his eyes became teary last night, Jing Xiao suddenly felt his mouth turn dry. "You." Mu Hanzhang wanted to raise his head and glare at him with how dark the inside of the carriage was. It was no use. He was too tired to bother with him. He turned his body around and buried his face in his husband's chest. What the eyes didn't see, the heart wouldn't grieve over. He intended to sleep for a while. Jing Shao continued to rub and knead every part of his wife that he could reach, massaging and eating tofu at the same time. A letter from Lu Niao came today, saying that the house in Pingjiang has been purchased. N. Mu Hanjiang responded vaguely. As soon as Jing Yu arrived, Ji Huiqing gave him a fierce beating. I wonder how he plans to write his war report. Jing Shao couldn't help but want to laugh when he thought about the mocking tone of Lu Zanpeng's letter. How's the maritime business matter going? Brother-in-law has already brought it up. Imperial father-in-law asked all ministries to write some regulations, but it wasn't clear how it would go yet. Mu Hanjiang was so sleepy that he couldn't open his eyes. He responded in a coherent manner while unconsciously rubbing against Jing Shao's chest. Jing Shao's heart felt tickled being caressed like this, but he restrained himself and didn't move at all. Knowing that his wife was really sleepy, he stopped talking and let the person in his arms sleep peacefully for a while. Prince Chang can no longer succeed to the throne. Winning him over will be beneficial to His Highness. Why bother making trouble for him? The Marquioness of Dingnan looked at the pale princess consort Rui lying on the bed and sighed. These were the words that the Marquis asked her to pass on. She was not Princess Consort Rui's biological mother, but the second official wife that the Marquis of Dingnan married after Princess Consort Rui was born. It wasn't convenient for her to say much, but the Marquis words needed to be relayed. That son of the concubine is still living in the summer villa while my Xiaoxi is gone. When Princess Consort Rui said this, tears welled up in her eyes again. The great sage calculated that aside from that lowly son of a concubine, the only other person who could have restrained Xiaoxi's spirit is Prince Chang. As she spoke, hatred filled her eyes. She learned that Prince Chang had held the child before he was a full month old. He had been killing people on the battlefield all year round, and his body was full of resentful energy of vengeful ghosts. If such a weak child was infected, then of course he would have such a short life. Aya! The Marquioness of Dingnan exclaimed. She looked around and then she got up to push the girl outside the door to go further away. She then came back in the room and sat down. You should stop saying such nonsense, please listen carefully to Prince Rui. End chapter.